Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Do you think God knew what he was doing when he created podcasts? Huh? No shit. I really want to know. Or do you think it was another one of his minor mistakes like tidal waves, earthquakes, floods? You think women are all like that? Fuck, I fucked up I'm gonna reset.
Oh, great.
I have to replace the same word 4 times. Okay, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And I can improve believe it or not,
ahead.
I
Okay,
can
and
improve the impression.
The idea is I'm going to cut out that last take.
Yes. Cut it
Okay.
out. Absolutely. No one is hearing this, Ben.
All right. And
Not
I'm
even at
making-
the end of the episode.
I'm making a note of this right now.
Yeah. Nowhere. Not as a bonus, nothing.
All right.
Okay, ready? Do you think God knew what he was doing when he created podcasts? Huh? No shit. I really want to know. Or do you think it was another one of his minor mistakes like tidal waves, earthquakes, floods? You think podcasts are like that? Smatter. Yeah. You don't think God makes mistakes? Of course he does. We all make mistakes. Of course, when we make mistakes, they call it evil. And when God makes mistakes, they call it nature. So what do you think? Podcasts, a mistake, or did he do it on purpose?
You're really getting into a groove when you hit like nature.
I know.
You're really getting into a Jack groove.
That's why I wanted a long quote. And for the listener at home, I felt like my hand gestures were I had the
very
timing
good.
of the hand thrusts.
It was really beautiful.
Here, something else.
Thank you.
I just want
Do
to
you
say.
really think? Yeah.
Well,
I lost it.
I
That
just
time I lost
looked
it,
at the spreadsheet, and Hims apparently is a sponsor this week, so you can bring Jack out.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can't control who walks into this studio to interrupt our ads.
right.
I'm
It's
not
just
going to call it. I don't have his number.
The amount of times Jack has pitched hair cream and Viagra on our show.
Oh, yes. No, of course. It makes total sense for you to complain about one of Hollywood's brightest star doing free ad reads for us, unprompted.
Anyway.
What a hard life you live, David. Should we all have 3-time Academy Award winners pitching boner pills and hair loss? Pro bono.
He's won 3?
He's won 3.
He's won 3.
There are 2.
Can you name the 3?
No, I apparently not.
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see what your 3 guesses would be. I'll give you this hint. 2 leads, 1 supporting.
Yeah.
Was one of them Reds?
Incorrect.
Nope. Rudely.
Great guess.
Well, then
Great
I don't
guess.
fucking care.
Okay. Well, that's the answer then. I guess that is the answer.
He was incredibly hot in that film. He deserved an Oscar for it. And so I don't care what bullshit they came up with. But no, tell me. I mean, I'm curious.
In terms of endearment,
well,
supporting.
Yeah.
Oh, I accept that. Sure. Why
One
not?
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, lead.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot that.
As Good as It Gets, lead. He won for 2 separate James L. Brooks movies.
I think he should have won for The Shining, you know? I mean, but whatever, you know? Look, it's not up
It's
to me.
weird. I mean,
you're never going to win for
the
your best
weirdest-
work. It's fine.
Well, but I mean, with how things are going next year, it might be up to you. I don't know what the Oscars are going to look like in 2021. It very well could be up to you. It could be up to any of us.
I would love
A couple of facts-
for it to be up to me.
A couple facts just want to swing in with. He
Sure.
lost the Reds Oscar to John Gielgud for Arthur, which is a weird win.
Yeah.
Ew.
And
why do we even
he
fucking
was
talk
not
about the Oscars? This is exactly why they pissed me off.
some
Arthur?
The 80s, there's a
Give me a
bunch of that. And like
fucking-
Ameche
80s are
winning
the
for
worst.
Cocoon. There was a lot of like, let's give it to an old timer for like their 18th best performance this decade because it makes us feel sentimental.
The 80s were a rough time for the Academy. They just fucking lost their minds.
What is it? 79 is Melvin Douglas wins for being there. And they were like, oh, that made us feel good to give it to an old guy right before he dies. And then they start just doing it too
They
hard.
do it a lot.
They're like, Gielgud, Ameche, everyone gets one.
The other thing I want to know is that Nicholson was not nominated for Witches of Eastwick, obviously.
Of course.
But he was nominated that year for Ironweed.
Oh, fair, I guess. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
which I've also never seen. It's Hector Babenco, right? But
I know the book.
I guess so. That was like his Oscar nomination, right? They were like, you get both.
So I'm going to bring up a thread that I don't know if I will be able to resolve by the end of this episode, but I'm going to try. Okay?
Okay.
On the subject that we're talking about.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, in 1987, gets the Ironweed nomination. That becomes his Oscar horse over Witches of Eastwick. Even though his Witches of Eastwick performance was widely adored and praised.
What kind of horse is an Oscar horse?
Probably Palomino.
Got it.
The New York Film Critics Circle did split his Best Actor award. They gave him Best Actor that year, and they gave it to him for Ironweed, Witches of Eastwick, and of course, his third leading performance, Broadcast News.
That's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Now, this is the thread I don't know if I'm going to be able to resolve. Okay. Unsurprisingly, during self-quarantine, I've been spending even more time than usual looking up award season ephemera, different nominations and awards.
To be
from
clear,
guilds.
he's very funny in Broadcast News. I love him.
Not a lead performance.
No, they just tossed it in.
Agreed.
They were like,
well, why not acknowledge it? You know.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. Okay, and you've talked about this in the past, David, that this last year, New York Film Critics Circle gave Best Supporting Actress to Laura Dern, and they split it for Little Women. And
they throw it to the room. Yeah, it's like, should we acknowledge both?
And you made the joke, do we want to acknowledge Cold Pursuit as well?
I did.
This is the thread I don't know if I can resolve. I swear to God, sometime in the last week, while Googling too many things, I came across an even more egregious example of this, where a third performance was lumped in and ended up getting an award that you would think never got an award ever. And I'm determined to try to find it by the end of this episode, because I wanted to mention it at some point on a blank check. It is something more insane than Jack Nicholson technically winning Best Actor for Broadcast News. I will figure out what it is, by hook or by crook.
Okay.
I love this journey you're on.
I'm on a real journey of self-discovery, and I think I will find myself the moment I find this answer.
I just got to say, I think it was very insightful for Witches of Eastwick to be nominated, noticed, to win. I mean, he won. The movie didn't win, but
no. And I think he got a Golden Globe nomination as well, because it was, they were able to nominate him in both comedy and in drama. But I feel
no Globe. No.
What?
No.
None?
Well, okay, but who are those people? Like, we're not even gonna talk.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the HFPA right now.
No, I mean, why would we ever?
I'm not acknowledging those goons. We're not doing that.
They are goons.
That does
but no, the only
bizarre.
acting awards he won were the Critics Awards and a Saturn.
Jeez.
Well, good for Saturn.
Good for Saturn.
Like such a slam dunk for the Globes to give him Best Actor in a comedy for this.
It is
the Globes
so
completely snubbed it.
Weird.
Is it weird? I mean, it's the Globes, right? This is why we should never talk about
let me redact my previous statement. Normal.
Pretty normal.
Yeah, pretty
Mozart
normal.
in the Jungle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, so exactly. Right?
Can I say something I maybe shouldn't say very quickly?
Oh boy.
I love it. Yeah. Let's do it.
This is me saying something I shouldn't say about someone who is fully canceled, so it doesn't really matter. I heard through my adjacency to all of this that there was an Amazon executive who loudly told people that they were going to win Best Comedy at the Golden Globes 3 years in a row before the first year that they had won Best Comedy at the Golden Globes.
Sure. There's
it's a cabal.
There's ways to win a Golden Globe.
But it was like, I promise you, just wait and see. We're winning the next 3 years. And it was like first season of Transparent, first season of Mozart in the Jungle. And then there was a fucking third one that I'm forgetting. First season of
Maisel. Here's what I want to say to you, Griffin. 1, introduce the show. 2, then I want to talk to you about the Golden Globes this year. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Introduce the show, but then we're going right to the 1988 Golden Globes.
I can't wait.
Can't wait.
Because look, I'm Griffin.
Yeah, I'm David.
And this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce, baby. I feel like my Jack's been better in the past. This is a miniseries on the films of George Miller. It is called Mad Pod Fury Cast. And today we're talking about Witches of Eastwick, which is ostensibly the only for-hire film he ever took. It is the only film that he did not develop himself, where he did not have complete control, because he's very much a man who kind of wrote his checks by just starting out in his own country and his own industry, independent financing. Even when his films got bigger, it's always sort of been the deal of, I'm bringing my own financing to the table and you don't get to tell me anything. And this is the one time that he was playing with the house's money. And it's an interesting film for that reason. And our guest today for Vanity Fair returned to the podcast for the second time, the great Cam Collins, aka Austin Collins. Thank
Happy
you for
to
being
be here. I mean, we're not here, I'm in my my bubble.
In your
we should mention, we're in
box, yes.
Wildly different rooms.
Wait,
I'm in a room with Vin Diesel. David is in a room with the poster for Witches of Eastwick, and Cam is against a brick wall.
I have a brick wall behind me.
Yeah.
But I just, can we for a second? I mean, so it's a film about three witches. There's three of us.
Yeah.
So tell me who's who. What was your plan? Who do you?
Oh boy, great.
Because Ben is definitely Daryl, so just that's
for sure.
That's handled. So the witches,
Ben's got big Van Horn energy.
I think
this is
I
hard.
think Cam is Cher.
Oh, I
think so too.
love you for saying that. I mean, they're all right answers as far as I'm concerned.
They're all great.
can't go
They're all
wrong here.
great.
That was
David,
an amazing
I think-
thing to say.
I think
you're
I'm Susan
Sarandon.
and you're Michelle.
Great,
Yeah.
great. I think we're all really happy with how this shook out, right?
that was perfect. I
No
can't-
disagreements?
No.
I think that's indisputable. All three of those are indisputable.
Yeah.
Here's what I wanted to say about the Golden Globes this year,
1988 Golden
which
Globes.
ignored this movie, which I assume was submitted as a comedy, right?
Had to have been. Yeah.
We can all agree.
Yeah.
The comedy field that year was pretty darn incredible.
Okay.
Here are the 5 Best Picture comedy nominees. Okay, the winner is John Boorman's Hope and Glory, which I guess is a comedy. That's sort of like a serious comedy.
You've already lost me. Your
So-
thesis
yeah,
has already
dramedy.
fallen apart.
So no, okay.
Yeah.
That got snuck in. That's
Yeah.
Oscar nonsense. Okay, fine. But then here are the others: Dirty Dancing,
Okay.
Broadcast News, Moonstruck,
Oh, wow.
and then the 5th is Baby Boom, which is not a bad movie.
But it's a pretty good movie.
No,
That's the one that's a little bit of a stretch.
not hoping. What's it called?
Yeah.
Hope and Glory, come on, Hope and Glory's all right.
I'm
Boy,
sorry,
growing up
but
during
I'm
World
here
War
to talk
II.
about Witches of Eastwick, and I would absolutely choose. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
right.
so we're clear.
It's just like sometimes you look at the globe lineup and you're like,
No,
oh
you
my
don't look at
god,
the
like
globe.
salmon
You
fishing in
don't
Yemen.
One never
I'm
does.
just saying, like, this was the year of Moonstruck and Broadcast News, and then Dirty Dancing, biggest movie of the year. Or
no, good
up
for
there.
them for those. Sure.
As I continue to search for this, I just want to point out that the LA Film Critics Association also split
Yeah.
with Witches of Eastwick and Ironweed for Best Actor, didn't do Broadcast News. This is not the one I was looking for. I'm going to continue searching while giving this podcast my all. But I want to point out that in 2011, LA gave Best Actor to Michael Fassbender for A Dangerous Method, Jane Eyre, Shame, and X-Men First Class.
Ugh.
All 4.
That kind of rules.
Yeah, sure.
That's a low-key bop.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. You know what? There's
You kinda
worse.
gotta respect
There's
that.
worse things happening.
Right, there are. I can name a couple things going on in the world today that are worse than when 9 years ago the LA Films Critics gave 1/4 of an award.
That was quite a year for him. Good for him.
That's right. I mean, you kind of
That was his like Jessica
He would be an
Chastain
interesting
year.
Daryl in a remake. I don't know who the witches would be. He could be a Daryl. Have you seen 12 Years a Slave, my friend? Okay.
I have.
Yeah. Right.
No,
Literal devil.
I mean, he's got
yeah.
right. He's got the energy. I'm trying to think. When is he funny? Like
That's
when
my
is
only
Fassi
holdup.
funny?
That's what I'm. When
He's
is
kind of-
Fassi funny?
He's funny in Inglourious Bastards.
He is funny in Inglourious Bastards. Thank you for answering, because I was stumbling there. I was stumped. Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one that speaks to me. It's
you
like
don't think that
he
he's-
gets his thing.
Hilarious in Hunger. All the shit.
You're right.
All the shit.
I mean, well,
Fish tank.
I love bathroom humor.
Fish
you know
tank.
me.
You know.
Right, yeah. Hunger, the first act is one long poop joke.
I think
okay,
Shane
Griffin, you want to
is
say something?
inadvertently funny.
I just want to say
Yes.
Ben is right now remotely recording. I agree with that. Ben is right now remotely recording in an attic where there is no heat, and he has a blanket draped around him, and he looks like he's in the movie Hunger. Like he looks like
Yeah, it's because the blanket too is like an old ratty green blanket. Yeah.
Oh,
I
you're
got
right.
that
You
vibe.
look like Bobby Sands.
You just look
The-
like, the Troubles, just in an
he
image.
looks like he's amidst the troubles, and he's in a
'Cause it's
confined
this- right.
space. The
It's the
walls are
green,
closing
too.
in on him. Like everything's angled around him. It's quite an image. And it's green. Both the blanket and his ski cap are green.
The ski cap is really what makes it. It's
He
just
looks
so.
great.
It's Oliver
it's
Twist.
a look.
It's-
Like honestly, if I tilted the computer down, like the camera, and I was like around a trash can on fire, you wouldn't even be surprised. That is my vibe currently.
Wow.
Man, this is a good year for movies. 87 is a hot year. I'm sorry.
the year that
And
I
this
was
is
born.
like-
Yeah.
Just.
Hey, there
Hey,
you
that's
go.
why. Can we go through the top 10 of the box office? Because I didn't spoil this film's box office performance, but I did quickly glimpse that it was in the top 10 for this year. This was one of the top 10
Good
highest
for
grossing films of
America.
87.
Good choice.
And this is a big year. I mean, this is RoboCop also comes out this year. The
Right.
greatest of all American films.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, you had the top movies. I mean, Three Men and a Baby, number one. Okay.
course.
But you do have Fatal Attraction, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Good Morning Vietnam, Moonstruck, the 5th highest grossing movie of the year.
Good for
Cher
us.
on goddamn fire in 87.
And then you got The Untouchables, Secret of My Success, Stakeout, Lethal Weapon, Witches of Eastwick. But there's a lot of other good movies
Good for
because this
The
is right, like
Untouchables.
you say.
I just
Yeah,
wanted to
definitely.
say.
I one of my favorite hobbies is reading reviews from when The Untouchables came out and feeling depressed. Because all the reviews are like, yeah, you know, it's like disposable popcorn trash. And you're like, it's a De Palma movie written by David Mamet with a Morricone score that has an homage to Battleship Potemkin in it. And everyone at the time was like, you know, it's like fluff.
And
Right.
Kevin Costner's kind of good in it.
Everyone's
Yeah.
kind of good in it.
Good year.
Here's
the
some
year
other
that I was born.
87 movies.
Yeah, keep going.
Raising Arizona.
Mhm.
You
Good
got,
for us.
you got what's it called? The John Sayles, Madawan.
Matawan.
Evil
yeah.
Dead 2.
Mm.
Full Metal
Oh.
Jacket. You got Swimming in Cambodia.
Yeah.
You got Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark.
Oh.
Good for
Oh,
us.
man.
A lot of blank check movies. I mean, it's interesting how many
Yeah.
filmmakers were either cresting or debuting right around this time.
And then, you know, your best picture winner that year is The Last Emperor, which I feel like, where is that on the sort of, you know, where do people, I love that movie.
watched that like within the last 3 years, and I'm not surprised no one mentions it, but it's not bad.
Right.
I've never seen it.
I feel like it gets thrown into the sort of the Gandhi bucket of like, oh,
It's
that's
better
like
than
out of
Gandhi.
Africa.
Don't
Exactly. Like the sort of prestige Oscar movies, but like it's much, much better than
It's
that. It's
better
a
than
beautiful
that.
movie.
It's
It
it's better
also-
than that.
Not having seen it, but my perception of its reputation is that it was seen as a far more sort of like esoteric international movie than Gandhi, which is such a Hollywood version of an international story.
Well, look. First of all, Ben Kingsley can play any ethnicity he wants, and
He's got the
I
pass.
support that.
He's got the pass. Yeah.
I mean, even if he didn't have the pass, he did it, and he did it, and good for him.
He's earned the pass.
He has, right. He's
Yeah.
shown, for example. Yeah, Gandhi, we're not going to do that Last Emperor, but it's also not like Amadeus to me. Like, there are things in that
Yes,
Last
that's
Emperor
fair.
that
Right.
feel
Sure.
like, this is what we're calling Oscar bait of that moment, whereas, like, Amadeus to me is, like, just weird. Just a weird movie. a weird.
Well, I mean,
comical-
You know what else is
What?
weird?
What is weird? The
Witches of Eastwick.
I've
This
never
is what I
heard
want
of
to
that.
say. Okay, so we'll fill you in, Cam.
I love that I'm Cher. I just want to.
Of course
You're definitely
unquestionably.
Cher.
There's no disagreement.
Everyone in this movie is hot. Like everyone in this movie is peak hot.
Yeah, especially Richard
Yes.
Jenkins.
I said everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm
Robert.
just spotlighting my boy Ricky Jenks.
No, absolutely.
Because we're talking so much about this cast and about where everyone was in their career at this point and how much it just feels like this is the only cast this movie could have. It is fascinating how this cast kind of came together at the last second, was not the original roadmap. And the thing that is most surprising about this movie is that it was Bill Murray as Van Horn, not just theoretically, but pretty deep into the process. And Jack Nicholson was still with Angelica Houston at the time. She went to screen test for this movie. And while she was doing that, he heard that Bill Murray had pulled out of the film. The film had been set up around the fact that Bill Murray was attached. And he had to say to Angelica Houston, hey, if you're going in there, would you tell them that I would be interested in taking it if they're looking for somebody now? The idea that this movie wouldn't immediately go, oh, this is a Jack Nicholson vehicle. That this movie
Who
was
should
set up
play-
conditional on it being a Jack Nicholson vehicle is insane.
Right, a sexy devil. Yes.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind the Bill Murray?
I just think he was the guy at that moment, and I think this is probably what it is. This is probably why they went to Bill Murray first. This is in the weird wilderness after Ghostbusters where he doesn't make a movie for 5 years. And it was like he had the biggest goddamn hit, he became the biggest star, and then he walked away from it all. And I think he just negged Hollywood so hard that they were so desperate to get him back that he then became like the most coveted movie star for any executive or any director, because the goal was like, can you be the one to lure him? And he doesn't return until Scrooge, save for the one scene in Little Shop of Horrors. He returns for Scrooge
which I
in
appreciate.
88,
Yeah.
and then Ghostbusters 2 in 89.
Scrooge, love it.
Yeah.
Good for him.
But
Yeah,
it is-
but
I
not
think-
this.
No.
Not this, Bill.
You could see it working, but that would be a concession pick. It would make more sense the other way around.
See it working?
I
could see it
can't.
working, but not-
I'd watch it.
Yes.
Right.
He can sustain this level of horniness.
He's not a horny guy.
Here's the other thing. I don't think he has the energy for it. He's a
the
much
sexual
more
energy?
casual actor.
Right.
Every type of energy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has the menace, although he clearly has a dark side. There is something to the fact that it's just like Nicholson is just like a fucking Tasmanian devil of evil and horniness in this movie. Like he's like
Absolutely.
Animal from the Muppet Show. You need someone who's just like live wire the entire fucking film.
But you also need, it's like, he needs to be someone who you're like, I would have sex with him.
Of course.
But I
In a
would
second.
also feel weird about it.
Yeah.
And like, I would think he was hot, but then I would also be like, why? Wait, like,
Yeah.
I would like stand back for a minute and be like, what, why is it that I think this is hot? And that is Jack Nicholson's 70s, but especially 80s, 90s movie vibe.
I don't think. Yeah.
Well, you have to believe that the women want to hate fuck him.
Right.
Exactly.
And you
right.
can't do that with Bill Murray.
Well, here's the thing. I think certain filmmakers, a different version of this movie, there is a version of it that works with Bill Murray that is this story transformed into a more traditional broad comedy in which he is not actually sexy and he is playing sort of a sketch comedy version of a smarmy, misogynistic asshole.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Not interesting. Not
We
interesting.
want
You
the
could
horny
see,
movie. We don't care
Yeah.
about that other stuff. No.
and I'm going to keep on coming back to this word, but I had never seen this movie before. And it is, I know, I'm sorry.
Oh my god. Oh my
I
god.
apologize.
No, don't apologize. I'm excited for you.
The mistake has been corrected. But
Yeah.
the thing that was most striking to me about this film is that, as opposed to a lot of the kind of comparable dark comedies of the time and supernatural comedies of the time and dark supernatural comedies of the time, because you have like DeVito, you have Beetlejuice is the year after this.
Mississippi
You have-
Burning.
Yeah, a great supernatural dark comedy.
May as well. be.
Yeah, but even Barry the Bridesmaid Sonnenfeld is about to start his Addams Family run a couple years later, like the Paul Rudnick zone. Like, this is like a thing, Frank Oz, that's like kind of existing in mainstream Hollywood at this time. This sort of sensibility. And I love that whole era of studio comedies that got dark and violent and all of that. But this movie has a little more genuine menace to it than those other films. There is like a real kind of, it's not even a scariness, because those other movies can have tension to them, but there is something that feels actually evil about this movie and not performatively
It's kind of
dark.
It's unsettling. It's also gross.
Yes.
Is what's evil, is what's gross, the fact that it makes you horny? I think it's hot. It is evil, but it's hot, right? It's a hot movie, right?
But I think the fact that it's genuinely hot
so
and
hot.
the fact that it's genuinely menacing
Yeah.
are one and the same. They're part
Yeah.
and parcel, because it's about the fact that this movie isn't putting anything in comedy quotes. For a comedy, it is not a film that is structuring most of its big scenes for laughs.
Right.
It is really trying to dig into the actual sort of ugliness of all of those primal emotions, of fear, of lust, you know?
It also doesn't have a plot at all.
No.
Like it just like it's the girls hanging out for a bit, and then he shows up, and then we basically just sort of like without acknowledging it, just cut to like, yeah, they're like a harem now, and everyone's freaked out
has
about
a plot.
it.
The plot is The Bachelor, the show.
You're right.
They
get
conjure up this
residuals?
man, and he goes on dates with all of them. And back in the harem, they get into fights.
His
And they
house is
start
even very
sabotaging
bachelor.
completely.
Yeah.
He fucks everyone. Ahead of its time, this movie. Cannot believe that this is a George Miller movie. This is like the thing that astonishes me.
I think George Miller can't kind of believe that this is a George, right? Like this is the one that sticks out weird,
but in like a good way.
Yeah. I mean, look, the guy has never made a bad film.
I haven't seen all of them. I haven't seen Happy Feet.
Happy Feet might be his worst movie.
It's my least favorite.
That's why I said that one, because I figured that'd be the hole in what you said.
Guess what?
Yeah.
Spoiler. It turns out Happy Feet 2 is kind of a masterpiece.
Yeah, Happy Feet 2, not bad.
Yeah, I'm like,
Okay, good.
really
I'll check that
into
out.
it. I'm trying to find some stories about how he got involved in this project, other than, I think much like Bill Murray, George Miller had become the sort of unattainable for studios. For him to do 3 Mad Maxes in a row, each one sort of topping the previous one in terms of scale, in terms of technical sort of craft and box office and everything, I think it was just like, this is so clearly a guy we should be pulling into the Hollywood system. And he kept on avoiding it. He would get distribution deals with American studios, but he wanted to play the game his own way by his own terms. So I think they actively pursued him because I don't know if he was the first choice, but it was just like the fact that he kept on saying no made him more and more desirable. But the big X factor to this movie is it was a Goober Peters production. It was the two John Peters and Peter Goober, or the two Peters rather, Jon Peters and Peter Goober, who were the notorious sort of swinging dick producers of the 80s, who then became the heads of Columbia Pictures and almost ran it into the ground. And this was a movie that was a total war between the two of them, who would then go on to do Batman with Nicholson and Burton and Miller. And Miller had never had to deal with producers who were against him. He had always worked with his best friend as his producer and his own sort of team that he had built and come up with. And
the money was Australian money. Like he'd never worked with the studio.
Totally. Yeah. And so he's dealing with a bunch of big stars for the first time, which he hadn't done before. He had essentially made Mel Gibson. And he's dealing with a studio, and he's dealing with two powerhouse producers who want things done the way that they wanted it done. And George Miller, his big thing he always says about this movie is that Jack Nicholson saved him. That Jack Nicholson exerted all of his movie star power to support him, to make sure his vision was kept intact, but also that Jack Nicholson really kind of tutored him on how to make sure he got what he wanted. Because he said, I can tell you're a real filmmaker, and I want to make sure you don't lose battles, not just here, but going forward.
Do you think that Jack Nicholson voted for Spotlight or Mad Max Fury Road?
Oh, wow.
We're not going to go there?
I think he voted for Mad Max.
I think he did.
You
He's
think
got
so?
that chaos energy.
The way George Miller continues to talk about Jack Nicholson, it feels like Nicholson really took such a goddamn shine to him and felt so protective of him that I can't imagine him looking at Fury Road and saying anything other than, that'll do, George, that'll do. He must have felt such beaming pride watching Fury Road.
Nicholson was in Mars Attacks. Just remember that performance. Think about that man.
Forget. I played hooky to go see Mars Attacks. I snuck in.
Right.
I didn't go to school. That's how much I fucking cared.
No, you went to school.
You did go to school. Yeah, you went to see Mars Attacks. That's cool.
You were
so
schooled.
Beautiful. That was so beautiful.
David?
Yes. It's me, David.
Hi, it's me, Griffin. We've been talking on mic for probably about an hour now, at least. Into this episode, and I haven't been keeping track.
Talking witches.
Right, we've been talking witches here, virtual nice, which is what we call our remote Zoom records. Yeah. And it's a shame because this is the first time we've had to do some real virtual ad reads in this way.
That's true. That's true.
And it is a shame because we have Hims, one of our longest standing advertisers on this show. And I always try to give him a little something extra. And it's usually nice when big celebrity drops by, Ding Dongs, our recording studio. But of course, that's not possible today. We can't do it. We're all recording remotely.
They've had a few famous endorsers on this show over the years. It's true.
They have. But right now, unfortunately, we're stuck recording the show in a way that is ding dong proof. It cannot be ding donged. Ring, ring.
All right.
Oh my God, someone's trying to join our Zoom call?
Oh, I guess I'll click allow.
We're getting Zoom bombed?
Well, boys.
Look who it is, Griffin.
Did somebody conjure me?
Oh my God, David, we were sitting around talking about how we wished an influential celebrity could help endorse this product, and we forgot that we secretly have witch powers.
Of course. Well, we didn't really know, but we didn't know until it happened, until we conjured someone.
If you're gonna sell boner pills, it helps to have 3 Academy Awards, boys.
Now, Mr. Nicholson.
Mr. Nicholson himself.
I feel like you've been on the show before to talk hymns, never to
Many
talk
times.
about your performances, only hymns.
No, I talk about my performance in the bedroom, boys.
Are you talking about an issue that 40% of men by age 40 struggle with, which is not being able to get and maintain an erection?
Look, I famously tell almost every actor I work with, including Robert Wool on the set of Batman, if you want to be a movie star, talk low and talk slow.
Sure, that's actually really good advice.
It is, right? I remember Robert Wool saying that in an episode of WTF, but the point is, when Robert Wool also asked me for advice in the bedroom, I said, Robert, think long and think hard.
So you're saying that guys shouldn't turn to weird solutions or do nothing when they could just turn to medicine and science.
And you certainly shouldn't give up and just try cramming wet spaghetti into a keyhole, if you catch my drift.
I do, and no, there's a tiny pill. It's worthy of a big celebration, and you can get it at forhims.com, which is a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and sexual wellness for men.
You want to have an erect penis, boys? I'm done beating around the bush. I'm going to beat my bush.
All right, just leave your bush over there, okay? Hims is going to connect you with real licensed doctors and FDA-approved pharmaceutical products to treat ED. They have well-known generic equivalents to name-brand prescriptions to help you combat ED. It's backed by science, made more affordable.
Helps you rub your own rhubarb, if you catch my drift.
Exactly. It's great.
I'm quarantined. I'm alone. I can't have sex, but I still, I don't want to self-love with a wet loofah, if you catch my drift.
And because you're quarantined, doctor visits, they're hard, so you don't have to worry
Impossible!
about those. There's no painful injections. It's very easy. All you do is answer questions about your medical history and chat with your doctor for a confidential review.
Remotely. It's almost like this business was set up for this time, this strange time we're living through.
Exactly. And the products ship directly to your door. Right to your door. It's very easy.
In the mail, baby. Help support the USPS.
All right, so you can try Hims today by starting out with a free online visit. Go to forhims.com/blank. That's FORHIMS.com/blank for hims.com/blank. Now listen, Jack. Prescription products are subject to doctor approval.
I'm listening, because acting is all about listening. People say that's what makes a movie star. Acting's reacting.
Prescription products are subject to doctor approval and require an online consultation with a physician who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. See website for full details and safety information. This could cost hundreds if you went in person to the doctor's office or pharmacy. But remember, it's forhims.com/blank.
And I tried getting Dr. George Miller, MD, to give me the consultation. But he said he's too busy having fever dreams and then writing scripts based on them.
He is a very feverish man.
Yeah. David, can I just point out something as well? Little added value here. I don't know if this happened to you. Hims sent me a box about a month ago, apropos of nothing, with a bunch of vitamin gummies. Did you get this box?
Me too.
And I've been taking them every day. I'm talking multivitamin gummies, heart immunity, which is good at a time like this, and then one for sleep, which, boy, that one has been coming in handy.
Oh, really? It really knocks you out?
Yeah, it's like it's not like too heavy. It's not like taking NyQuil or anything.
No, I get
it's like
it.
a little like melatonin gummy that tastes good. I take it every night, and it helps me go to sleep a little better in these weird and wild times. So I just want to point out that Hims has some other products that are worth looking into, even if you don't need their boner pills.
All right. Bye, Jack.
I can't just stick around and...
Sure, if you want to talk Witches of Eastwick.
No, I'd rather not. I don't like talking about my own performances.
All right, see you later, Jack.
Bye!
Can I read just two quick
Go for it.
Miller, Nicholson, Peter, Goober's Beyond Thunderdome cage match things here?
Yeah.
So Jon Peters, very famously, amongst other things, there is the story about him developing the Tim Burton, Kevin Smith Superman Returns that has now been widely circulated, where he was desperately trying to get Kevin Smith to write a robot Spider-Man, which he then later shoehorned into Wild Wild West. Here's a very similar story. Okay, I'm just going to read this verbatim from IMDb Trivia.
Go ahead.
According to George Miller, producer Jon Peters suddenly decided he wanted aliens to appear in the movie, even though it didn't make sense with the story. Miller thinks that Peter was influenced by the box office success of Aliens, 1986. He even showed up one day on set with a stuntman dressed as an alien and told Miller to put him in a scene, any scene. Miller and Jack Nicholson. Yes, Miller and Jack Nicholson then left the set until Peters gave up on his fixation. I just want to point out, fucking Jon Peters didn't just say at like a script stage, can we write aliens into it? He didn't even say while filming, can we find a way to put an alien in somewhere? He showed up to set with a guy in a full goddamn alien costume and said, put him in a scene today.
What do you think the costume looks like?
I don't know.
I respect it. This is what I want to say.
I'm imagining the guy from Shape of Water showing up.
I mean, I feel like it probably is your classic kind of gray, almond-eyed alien.
Yeah.
But just like, it's like normal meddling Hollywood producers do annoying things like say at the script stage, why don't we put aliens in this movie? Only Jon Peters got a guy to dress up.
I know.
Showed up on the set and was like, come on, he can be in the background. Like who's it going to hurt?
I will not name the project, but there was a thing I worked on once where there was a horrible sort of cigar smoking slick back hair producer. And he would repeatedly go to the sort of creative head of the project and pitch them on having a scene where the lead got punched in the nuts by a little person. He never brought a little person to set. He would bring it up every day.
Right.
He would pitch it in detail. He would pull up YouTube clips to try to support his point. But he never got to the point of saying, here is a little person. I've hired him. I put him through hair and makeup. Pick your scene.
Jon Peters did that, and he did that with a special effects costume with some degree of makeup to make a fucking human being look like an alien. I respect it.
I think it's great.
Shoot your shot. I think that show you're committed to the idea.
This is the other big part of this. And I think this really causes like a turning point in George Miller's career. He never does a movie like this again. He never gives a studio this much control over him. But I think it makes him twice as sort of stubborn and steadfast about his vision. So let me just read this. After the Alien thing, Miller and Jack Nicholson left the set until Peters gave up on his fixation. So this is connected to that. In Australian magazine, Cinema Papers, early 90s, director George Miller revealed the shoot had been extremely difficult. This is so fucking telling of everything that is still to this day incredibly stupid about the sort of Hollywood studio system mentality.
Well, be nice to Hollywood studio system right now, because
those poor guys.
Okay, let me couch this. Let me try to say this while pulling some punches.
But
okay?
until like a couple of months ago. Yeah.
Right, punching bag. Okay. But this is, I swear to God, this shit still happens today. In a meeting to discuss ways to reduce the budget, Miller volunteered to give up his trailer because he was always on set and had no time to use it. The studio concluded from that he was a pushover, so they began to interfere with his production requests. If he asked for 50 extras, the studio would provide a dozen. If he asked for 2 cameras, they would provide 1. Miller decided to fight fire with fire and refused to shoot each scene until his production demands were met. The studio responded by looking for a new director, but Jack Nicholson, who supported Miller, vowed to walk off the production if he was replaced. So this is the psychology here. A guy comes to set and goes, look, if we need extra money for this movie, I don't need this creature comfort. Put it back into the production so the value is up there on the screen. And they said, this guy is such a cuck that he doesn't even want a trailer? That must mean he's a bad director, so we shouldn't give him anything. I swear to God, this is how these people still fucking operate.
Right. But I mean, it is the 80s is the height of this kind of like, hey, look, the guy with the biggest dick is the real director over here, right? Like what you're saying, the cigar chomping,
but you
Hawaiian shirt wearing producer.
You understand how if this is the one experience he has with this, and even still, the movie's a hit, it comes out well, it gets good reviews, the movie stars all align with him. George Miller smartly, really fucking hot. George Miller smartly is like, I'm going back to Australia. I'm doing everything on my fucking terms. I'm getting my own financing, and I'm buying back the rights to Mad Max. Like, I'm optioning Babe myself. Like, everything becomes, I have to do this on my own.
Mrs. Dalloway said, I'm optioning Babe myself. That's fucking poetry, dude. Like,
and at the time, that didn't really make sense. Like, when she wrote that, it didn't really make sense.
Until George.
Yeah.
I gotta say, what you're saying clarifies for me, the behind the scenes big dick energy of George here clarifies to me why this is his hottest movie. Because I think there's something about this movie that feels like a fight to me when I watched it. Like when I watched it recently, it just, first of all, you got to have that moment where you think, man, remember when just a mainstream Hollywood movie really was a movie? Someone is awake,
had like production
behind
value.
The camera. The fucking shot compositions are more than just rudimentary, and the fucking outfit and just everything. It's like a fucking film. That's a popcorn movie, but it's like a fucking film.
This is the term I use.
Is getting at that. Is getting at that for me. But totally. No, we're gonna make a fucking good movie instead of this alien. I really. I respect showing up with an alien. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, respect it as an individual move, but also respect George not letting it interfere with it. Oh, great bit commitment.
Yeah.
From Peters, one of our finest comedians. I had a friend who lived on my couch for like almost a year because he had lost his job and had insurmountable credit card debt. And my roommate and I were like, stay on our couch until you rebound. And most of that year, because most of my social life is sitting on a couch and watching things, was me watching stuff with him late at night because he now lived on his bed was the couch. And when I would have to try to sell him on a nightly basis on something to watch, something that I want to watch that he would also approve of because it was his bed, he would always say, I want to watch like a movie.
Yeah.
Like he was a guy who liked movies, but was not like very, serious about them.
And I was like, I would always say, what do you mean? And he was like, like a movie that has like cinematography and like a music and acting. And I would say all movies have that. And he's like, no, but you know what I'm saying. And what he was saying is what you're saying now, Cam. It's a term I think about all the time. It's a certain level of studio film made with real movie stars, giving real sort of in-the-pocket performances with real production value, real vision, real voice behind it, real ideas, and like just top-of-the-line craft.
And
whether or not the thing works.
Product. It's still product.
Right. That was his thing. Like, sometimes I'd be like, this is a really good foreign film. This is a really good indie film. And he was like, I want to watch a movie.
No, I know exactly what he means. And this is a movie that lives up to the fact that it stars Jack Nicholson, Susan Sarandon, Cher, and Michelle fucking Pfeiffer.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts.
It lives up to that.
The poster structure of big Nicholson above, like top of everything, and then one line down.
Oh, you mean the naming? Yeah, right.
Yes, right. It's Nicholson in huge font, and then slightly smaller font, one line down, Cher, Sarandon, Pfeiffer. And it's rare that you have like the number one guy at the top is humongous, and also the three people below him with that gulf are still all legendary.
Legends.
Legends, true legends.
All legends, all, as Cam is saying, pretty much at the height of their powers, right? Bar none.
Yeah.
Maybe Pfeiffer is still in her sort of ingenue phase. I guess she's the youngest of them. Like,
she's a grown-ass woman.
A runway.
Right. I mean,
no, she is. But like,
at this point, she's incredibly overqualified ingenue.
She's got Baker Boys in a couple of years. She's got Batman a couple of years after that, right? Like, she's ramping up. This is her ramping up. I guess Dangerous Liaisons, that's next year, right? Yeah.
I got to tell you guys, like, the weird thing about me and George Miller is that my introduction to George Miller, I didn't see the Mad Max films until college.
Sure.
Et cetera, et cetera. My George Miller films, I didn't know this at the time, were this and Lorenzo's Oil, the movie that he made afterward.
Oh, wow.
Because these movies were on TV all the time.
So you only knew his Sarandon
I did not know that George Miller directed Witches of Eastwick until Fury Road.
It's pretty...
They're completely divorced. Yeah. And Lorenzo's Oil is just like...
Are you an oil boy? What do you think of the oil?
I mean...
In the words of the Tin Man and the Wiz, would you suggest that people slide some oil to you?
Well, it's like depressing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is, but it's good.
It's like a childhood illness that's like incurable.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
It is a real slog, but it is also... But there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, but also... If your lens on, I just want to, I live in a weird universe where these were two big movies for me. As a kid, I watched them a lot. They were on all the time. Lorenzo's Oil was, Susan Sarandon, just Jersey legend. I'm a Jersey guy. Shit.
Of course.
Where Jersey?
I'm from Plainfield, North Plainfield. Susan Sarandon's from Edison, where I also lived for a time.
I'm Patterson area.
Oh, I love that for you. I don't love the movie Patterson.
How dare you?
I like it. Come on.
Love that movie.
I like it. It's
fine. You don't have to like it.
No, it's all right. I mean, just Jersey art. It's a high standard. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, we have Philip Roth, but it's fine. Patterson's good.
Angelica Houston, it seems like, was their first choice. And by her own admission, she fucked up the audition.
Who was
she
gonna
says she was going to be Alex, which it just feels like
Cher role.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Obvious sort of casting. She's in such a witch zone then. Had she already done The Witches, or does that come after this?
I don't know, but that's fucking iconic.
Right?
That's a couple years after, but that is iconic. And then, of course, she's Morticia.
We know she didn't get any nominations for The Witches, right?
Are we sure?
I'm pretty sure.
I wonder if she got one.
I would love to be wrong.
I'm going to look it up, and I want to bet that she got one.
She won Critics Awards, but that's it.
For The Witches?
No. Yes.
Good for critics. I'm loving us right now.
She won the LAFCA and the National Society, but
She won the National
That was also.
Society for
But
Witches.
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. It was tied with that and The Grifters.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The
So she won
Grifters
for
was
The
her prestige movie.
Fair enough.
Right.
So it was
Well,
similar to this. It was similar to.
But they still
equally
shouted
iconic.
it out.
Yeah.
I mean, she is so good in The Grifters and so good in most movies that
She would have
is
been great in this.
Yeah.
She would have been great in this,
Jack.
but
She sort of
Yes.
said like I felt like this was in my court
Yeah.
and I couldn't get my head around the language and I went into the screen test ill prepared and it's probably the worst audition I've ever done.
Is there
So
a
I
take?
think I'm looking for it.
Because God, YouTube is perfect for this kind
Yes.
of thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, I would love to see what she thinks is her worst audition.
So then everything goes like sort of out the window. Pfeiffer was the one of the three who was cast earliest after I think they considered Amy Madigan and also Daryl Hannah. Daryl Hannah turned the film down, and I quote, on moral grounds.
Oh, tell me more. I love it.
I have no further info.
too horny.
Daryl,
no, I-
Clan of the Cave Bear.
I was
Hannah.
going to say, are we not all but certain that Daryl Hannah turned this film down because she thought it was disrespectful to witches? I'm not even making a joke. I have to imagine. I'm 1,000% serious. I guarantee you that was the reason.
Oh boy.
That's the reason. We're just going.
I have
with
no
that.
inside track. I feel it in my fucking bones that she thought this film gave witches
I would fucking love
bad
that.
luck.
It makes sense though. Like just like Angelica Houston, they went with Cher. Like Daryl Hannah was in that zone, in that Michelle Pfeiffer ingenue zone right then.
So Pfeiffer, then they lock down, and then they're looking to cast the role of Alex. And who do they cast? Susan Sarandon. Susan Sarandon is officially cast as Alex, accepts the role, starts doing the work. Then they're struggling to get the third witch. They finally get through to Cher. Cher agrees. She likes the project. And then after signing on, she takes another read of the script and she goes, actually, I'd rather play this role than that role. And so they swap them out. Cher becomes Alex. Sarandon does not even know that her role has been switched until she arrives on location for pre-production.
It's so rude.
Yeah. But it's pretty wild because then it's like you look at this cast and you go, oh, all three of them must have been first choices for these roles. This feels like the three most obvious prominent women to play these parts, but it actually was like a circuitous path to get there and a circuitous path to get Nicholson.
I'm glad we're dwelling on this. This is an extremely well cast movie.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Top
Like how they
fucking
figured
bottom.
it out. And get right, because Jenkins, who I mean, this is very early in his career,
early.
right? This is one of his earliest movies, even though he was born like 45 years old and balding.
He's like that
And
SNL sketch where Will Ferrell comes out named Ted Brogan, already owing people money.
Oh man.
And
Do
then
you remember that where they're in a delivery room?
Yeah.
Good sketch. I don't
And
know.
then
Watch
Veronica
that.
Cartwright is
Veronica
incredible.
fucking Cartwright.
I was going to say, Veronica
She's
Cartwright
so good.
is my stealth pick for the best performance in this movie. I think her work in this is
not
unreal.
Stealth. Unreal.
Yeah,
I rewatched
unreal.
The Birds recently, and first of all, iconic movie. Talk about witches. I mean, just if you add birds to this movie, just combine these two movies somehow. We got to do that.
This movie could use some crows.
That's
some
what
crows,
Peter
some
should have been doing.
gulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should have been throwing birds onto into the set.
Veronica Cartwright. Oh,
Do you guys know that Veronica Cartwright and Jack Nicholson used to date in the 70s? And
tell me when in the 70s.
I don't have more specifics. I will look for answers right now, but this is the big headline. I don't want to bury this lead. They rekindled their affair during production of this movie.
Wasn't he still with Angelica,
Yes,
or
he
is he not?
was.
Oh,
Yes,
he's
he
being a
was.
bad boy. I
Cartwright
see.
and Nicholson were fucking during the filming of this film. On camera, during takes. That's not true.
Wow.
I would just like to reiterate that this is George Miller's hottest film. And everything that's
indisputably.
coming up just feels like it's just fate, right? Like
That even those
some
two
people
characters were fucking, yeah.
call it God,
I will-
but I call it, I don't know, I don't have a word for how perfect Of course, some people in this movie are fucking, though, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
Yes. Well, right. Everyone in every movie is having sex.
Fair. Fair.
It's yes, but yes.
The date I have here, 1978, is
Well, that's
Jack
she's
Nicholson's
in Going South.
I believe
Okay.
that's when they met and then had an affair.
Yeah.
Wow.
That makes
Dated
sense.
after that. Yeah.
But so right. So this is kind of a like, hey, Veronica, like, you know, it's like they're
Remember
rekindling
me.
their.
Yeah.
Not even one of the witches, and she fucking starts fucking Jack Nicholson.
I mean, there's a good chance that Jack Nicholson had sex with all four primary actresses in this film, right? There's a really good chance.
Who wouldn't sleep with everyone in this movie?
I know. There's a good chance that everyone in this film slept with everyone else in this
It
movie.
is a perfect orgy.
There's a good chance that Richard Jenkins fucked Jack Nicholson off camera.
Well, I hope so.
That Cher was stuffing Sarandon. I'm talking every which way but loose. I think everyone was
And Carol,
stuffing everyone
Carol
else.
Struckian, you know, the Lurch.
Oh, who wasn't picking off a piece? There's enough of that
Lurch
guy to
was
go
laying
around.
pipe.
He's a fucking buffet. Lurch himself.
Fidel. Fidel is a funny name for that guy.
Yes. Because every time Nicholson goes on about him, I had to remind myself he's not talking about Fidel Castro.
Right.
Because the scenes work that way. If you think that this guy just keeps on bringing up Fidel Castro as a non sequitur,
Right.
wants to talk about Fidel's hog size.
His vibe could be, I know Fidel Castro socially.
That's why I accepted it. I went, oh, what a good character detail. This guy hangs out with Fidel Castro. The devil, 1980s devil and Fidel.
So the plot of The Witches of Eastwick,
I have
I think, is that there's a little town called Eastwick. There are these three ladies who have,
In Rhode
is it like
Island.
a standing Thursday date? Yeah, it's in Rhode Island, right? It's like,
Yes.
They have a little
One of
martini
the-
club.
Well, wait.
They have a
I
martini
feel like we're
club.
skipping over something. I feel like we're skipping
ahead.
over the era of the 80s and 90s Reagan-esque sweeping aerial shots of fall Connecticut, Rhode Island, with the John Williams music and the you know what I'm talking about, right? This mode.
Yeah. Which leads to, I mean, I think what you're describing pretty much ends the following year because Beetlejuice just fucking takes it to the
Absolutely.
mat with the
Right.
fucking psych out
the
of the
picket
model
fence
town.
thing becomes
No, but also the
comical
opening
right
of
around
the
now.
Elfman
Yeah. Yes,
score
yes,
over
yes.
what looks like the helicopter shot and then turns out to be a model in an attic.
Oh, I love
Right.
that.
They butcher him. They take him to the cleaners. They fold him like laundry.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They get juiced, is what I'm saying.
So these, yeah.
But yes, that is
So these-
that is very representative of this time period. And it's also worth noting
Yeah.
that the book, The Witches of Eastwick, obviously written by John Updike, of course, it takes place in the 60s. A big immediate change
Yes.
for
Oh.
this movie to set it in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not the only change they made, but a big immediate one.
Yeah, then and a very clever change.
None of
this
us
shouldn't
has
be
read
set
the
in the
book,
60s.
right?
No, you said you dabbled, right?
I read a few pages.
Yeah.
I mentioned this to you before that this is the only John Updike novel on Harold Bloom's list of the Western canon. The Rabbit novels are not there. None of the other bullshit's there.
Very bizarre.
Very bizarre, but that would mean, I mean, obviously I was curious. And yeah, I mean, I have to say in the opening pages, women are talking, and that was interesting for him.
Yeah. I didn't realize that
this
was
is
legal.
like he's the guy. Funnily enough, you know Nicholson's line in As Good as It Gets, like, you know, how do I write women? Well, come on, what's the line? Like, I imagine. All right, now I have to look it up.
Oh,
But that's an
I
Updike line, that
write
weird,
a man
insulting
and then
thing.
I remove like reason.
It's like reason and
Right.
something else.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even,
yeah.
I before this, see, I said I
Reason
wasn't
and
going to
accountability.
Yes.
That's right. I said I wasn't going to shade Updike, so I apologize for that.
No shade. Yeah.
But yeah, look, it stands out in his work. I think it can only. This is the only time any critic of books has called like an Updike novel feminist, right? Like this is
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also like this is a weirdly adapted work. I think one of the
Yeah.
reasons that it's not thought of as an Updike novel, because it's rare that a writer who is that prominent has a book that is this prominent, and the two are rarely sort of associated with each other.
Yeah.
And part of it is that this thing keeps on getting adapted into different mediums at different time periods over the last 30 years. But I think one of the running things that if you read the sort of response to the book at the time, and even the legacy now, and also every version, the TV show, the musical, this movie, there's constantly this question of like, is this thing a satire of what it seems to be saying?
Yeah.
Is it a work that other people can reclaim? Like, what was his intent in writing it? Is he trying to sort of reassert gender roles, or is he trying to deconstruct them? Like, it's a, kind of an interesting, thorny text.
The movie?
For all of it.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, for me, what I love about this movie is that it kind of floats beyond all of that for me. Like, I don't mean to keep coming back to the sexual energy, but I guess it does, for me, it is a movie star movie full of great sexual energy. So to me, that is what it's about. Witches are a sexual thing. A horny goat man is a sexual thing. All the fucking is literally sexual. So satire or not, I feel like it's beyond that. It's a movie star movie to me.
And also, whether or not it's satire, it's sort of like, it's a comedy playing off of the cis-het perception of gender roles within a relationship.
Yes.
Whether it's trying to deconstruct them or support them or just acknowledge that they exist and find comedy within that, it is about people literally willing themselves into a relationship that represents all the best and all the worst of straight male-female pairings.
But because the movie is so ridiculous, it just sort of, it just finds an escape hatch beyond like lingering to me on those questions. In the end, I just laugh. I think it's like a successful comedy because it just floats beyond these things. It's like, it's acknowledging, but really if ever I were to say this is just a movie about something, like for all the really interesting things that are happening, this to me just is like a movie. I don't know. Once I get into like the gender politics of this movie, I'm like, I don't know. To me, the gender politics are everyone wants to fuck.
Everyone wants to fuck. But there is this sort of vibe of like, he worships them and he sort of he's amazed by, there's that speech where he's like, women, they can make babies, right? Where he's like talking about how incredible women's bodies are. But he doesn't really want to
gross about it.
Exactly. And he doesn't really want to do, he thinks of them best as bodies. I feel like that is his vibe for most of the movie. Like he wants to make babies with them.
I also think
he's a problematic guy.
He is a problematic man.
He's a problematic
devil.
He's the devil.
But I think that what is great is that it acknowledges how alluring and like horny it would be to be worshipped that way. But also, at the end of the day, you're just sitting in a fucking bubble bath, kind of bored out of your mind.
So this is my big take on this movie. Because it is literally about these women conjuring this guy together, right? From essentially like a pitch meeting of everything they would want in a guy. But it's very specifically the pitching you do when you're drunk, with friends. You're sort of like, your id is talking. Yeah. I think this movie is above all else about being attracted to things that are bad.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Whether they're qualities in a person or dynamics in a relationship.
Which is why Jack Nicholson is perfect.
Yes. Right. He is that where you're like, I love this. I know there's something. I know this is not ideal. I know this guy's got a dark past. Like,
you cast Jack Nicholson. I'm not going to immediately go, well, this is the guy to root for. I'm going to go, well, I got questions about this guy.
But I
want to see him.
But I want to see him on screen. I want to see him be problematic.
And even from like his perspective, he is drawn to them because they are like strong-willed. But he himself admits late in the movie that all he really wants is someone to fucking do his ironing. You know?
Right.
Like, it's
And make
like
a baby.
Yeah.
he would not be turned on to someone who was more subservient, but he also still at the end of the day wants domesticity.
Right. But the thing that the movie does that's interesting is that it doesn't wait until the end for the women to have a sort of moment where they realize this is bad. For example, Cher pretty immediately is like, okay, you're a piece of shit. Like,
The first thing she
still
says to her,
might wanna
basically.
fuck you. Okay, like
Right.
not saying that we're not going to fuck, but I'm just saying that you're a piece of shit. Right. It's not like we're swinging around at the end towards some revelation about how terrible he is and how they're able to be strong. From the get-go, they will him into being. They're in control. They're in control throughout the movie more than they realize, and they're harnessing their like crazy
And they have
wish power.
Right. They have witch powers the whole time, but are not even really conscious of them for half the damn movie.
And the witch power is being horny. It just is simple, people. You know, I right.
This is anything
They were horny
that
for the rain, and they
horniness
were
and
horny for
magic.
Jack.
As a child, I knew what this movie was about. I mean, between this and Catwoman, it's just like, Michelle Pfeiffer, you're representing, sex on screen to me. And Scarface.
I mean, that man must hate
Scarface.
this movie, right? It must just freak him out.
Gosh.
So these women, this movie is like dark practical magic. I know practical magic came out later, but practical magic is like you actually could summon your ideal husband just through a spell and he'd turn out to be a nice guy. And this is like, if you tried to do that, you would literally find yourself fucking the devil. And they summon this guy kind of by mistake. His introduction is incredible. They're at the classical music concert and he's snoring and making these like wild boar noises.
It's based on my grandfather. He did that at one of my middle school band concerts once. So
I to introduce him
from the moment
he's so disgusting, in the first, and it's so good.
And it's not like he is styled radically different in this film than he is in general, other than the tiny little ponytail.
The
ponytail is an incredible touch. But from the moment he comes on screen, I realized, Jack Nicholson looks like George Miller designed him.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like
he
Jack
almost is like the bullet farmer.
Like Jack Nicholson's natural eyebrows are how he styled a Morton Joe.
Oh, can we talk about the most natural fuck up face in Hollywood? Just a guy whose eyebrows, whose smile.
Yeah.
When we lose Jack Nicholson, we lose everybody. But like, there's no one who's got a face like this.
Right.
No,
there's
just,
no one who's got like
and
that.
just I also argue the energy. That's the thing for me. I argue there is no one today who has this much energy on camera.
It would be, not only could you not name today's Jack Nicholson, but it would be laughable to even like shortlist candidates. Like there isn't anyone like that.
I'm not even looking for someone to be exactly like him. I'm like, what's an equivalent?
No, but like no one's in that zone is what I'm saying.
No,
but it's just like he's got the most juice. He's got the most battery of anybody, you know?
And to be so good at comedy and like fucking drama with the same freaking smile.
Yeah.
With that same shit.
And he rarely disguises himself. He's a very distinctive, specific guy. He's got a specific voice. He's got specific mannerisms. And he is able to apply those to such wildly different things in different films and also hand himself fully over to directors. It is so telling that in a case like this, and you'd hear the same stories about Batman a couple years later, which is also Peter and Goobers, where like even with a young director, if he believed in them, he was like, I got your fucking back. You know, like, I'll fight the battles for you because I'm Jack.
But he'll say it in a voice that kind of scares you.
Yeah.
Would you say,
I'm gonna fuck you, Tim Burton?
God.
Go ahead, Ben.
Would you say that his approach to acting in, like, that manly kind of way that makes him special? Like, I think of that and, like Harrison Ford, too, of, like, how they're not, like it's artful, but they're not, like, taking it too seriously or themselves too seriously. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, definitely.
You don't think
he's
about
the
what
ultimate-
school of acting you
Yes.
come from. When you
No,
think
they
about
don't
that.
give a
Right,
shit
right.
about that. Yeah.
He is the ultimate sort of, in quotes, movie star. He is kind of the only movie star who is
Yeah.
constantly deflating his persona every single movie he makes, even when the film is built around supporting that persona. I
Yeah.
also
But,
think
like-
of like the classic Elaine May quote about like improv, where she said, if you don't know what to do in a scene, seduce, seduce, seduce. She was like, that's always the most interesting choice you can make as an actor is to seduce, which is Elaine May's opinion. But Jack
Right.
Nicholson treats every single scene as a seduction. Even if it isn't literally, it always is. Even if it's a business scene, you know? Every
Yeah.
scene is some sort of seduction. He's always trying to lure someone over to his side.
I need an Elaine May, Jack Nicholson
Oh, God.
collab.
Let's make it
I
happen.
mean,
Fucking right
fuck.
now. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. And the
We-
fact that she is, you know, allegedly coming out of retirement to direct another film,
Can
and
we-
Nicholson's been off the screen for over a decade, it's like, if she could
Oh my
fucking
God.
lure him out.
If we can do a new leaf 2021, that's optimistic.
I'll say this.
2022,
I'll even say this.
Yeah, right.
Jack,
think-
Elaine.
I think Elaine May Jack Nicholson is the only fucking, why am I blanking on the title? The Marion Ade film that Nicholson was
Tony
supposed to
Erdman.
remake.
Oh.
Tony Erdman.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
Elaine May is the only person I would be interested in seeing remake Tony Erdman.
Yes.
And Nicholson was supposed to do it.
But my initial feeling about, and this is getting at what we're talking about.
Yeah.
My initial feeling about that was, damn, it really fucking depends on who directs that movie.
Totally.
Because
Totally.
he so easily gets lent to, because he's a mainstream actor.
Yeah.
So he gets lent to some dog shit. Yeah, I mean, I actors are actors with careers like his are tough because you know, as a writer, you kind of have that moment where you want to do a thing about an actor and you actually go line by line through their filmography and watch the shit.
Mhm.
And you're like, fuck, you were in a lot of terrible movies. And Jack has been. But like,
He's been in a few bad ones.
he's in a few bad ones. Meryl Streep too, just name like, you know, people who are great, but whose movies aren't always
Yeah.
great.
Well,
Jack
she
Nicholson's
really had
movies,
the
I think,
problem.
have been better. I think he's been in
Meryl
better
made a
movies.
lot of mediocre movies. Meryl has been in a ton of things that are not very good, but she is good in them.
Well, that's how you rig the game, right? You let everyone else
Right,
kind of
exactly.
slum it, and then you're like, well, I'm fucking Meryl Streep, so I'm going to
mean,
get the
do-
fucking
I mean,
Oscar
she's
for
in-
this terrible movie.
Do you know
She's got
who
great
is-
movies, obviously.
It inspired one of my favorite Onion articles ever. I just pulled up the exact headline here, but it is an op-ed column, quote unquote, written by Meryl Streep, and the headline is "Name one masterpiece of cinema that I've started."
Right.
And the thesis is it's Meryl Streep saying like, "Look, I mean, I'm not complaining. I've had a good career. Obviously, I'm very respected, but like, have I ever been in a truly great movie?" And that article's from 2009.
Yeah. I
And
think
The
that's-
Onion makes a
that's-
pretty good argument against her being in a single flat out masterpiece.
No, she's been in some great stuff.
Agreed. But this is everyone will
But-
read the article on their own time.
But the proportion is not healthy.
Yes.
It's
yes.
not healthy.
Yes.
It's, you know, she's got a lot of, you know, Marvin's Rooms in there.
Forgot about
No
Marvel's
offense to
Room.
Marvin's Room.
Do you know who I
No
think is
offense
the
to
ultimate?
offense to Marvel's Room. That
Here is
or
my opinion,
whatever.
the ultimate example of what we're talking about. Are you ready for a surprisingly difficult question?
Oh, I love it. Yes.
What is the best movie that Angelina Jolie has ever been in?
By the Sea, directed by Angelina Jolie. Next question.
She is the only one who's ever done right by Angelina Jolie.
And she made Brad Pitt do accents, which he's bad at, and that's what you do to your ex-husband, man.
She
Fucking
made him
get
do like 4
Fucking get
accents
him,
at the
Angelina.
same time.
and he sucked at that.
Really, yeah, face planting.
That's how
No,
you
but
fucking
isn't-
do it.
What is
For someone who is that
the best-
iconic, who is like one of the biggest box office movie stars of the last 20 years, also has won an Oscar, it is astonishing how bad her filmography is if you really look at it film by film.
she would get hit with She's Not a Star,
I'm saying there's an honest argument for that, and that in and of itself is kind of astonishing when you consider how unquestioned she is as one of the biggest stars.
And just a great star, yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite Angelina Jolie movie is Alexander. I think that's the answer.
But like, once again, a controversial answer. Like, both of you are
Very controversial.
picking movies that are controversial.
Griffin, I understand the premise of it. You're
I think it's fascinating.
right.
Controversial only because people haven't caught up. I mean,
Yeah, people need to catch up.
It's tough being an iconoclast, but
why
I appreciate David's answer as well.
That's why, similarly, I think her best film is Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, which people have not caught up with yet.
But you know what? I respect that. I love this conversation. I'm struggling to think of a better one than any of these. I kept wanting to say Titanic, but she wasn't.
Right. It's just kind of incredible how undeniable she is that she's been big in 3 separate decades now. Yeah. And she has done so few films that have any sort of lasting imprint. But this even beyond the quality that have like really held up in anyone's minds.
This is stardom.
Yeah, it's right. That's the point. It's undeniable stardom.
You don't watch the movie. You watch for her.
Her stardom is so much bigger than any film she's ever been in.
I rewatched Tomb Raider recently. I don't really even know why. It's so fascinating, and it's such a a nostalgia warm bath that just reminds me of like the early 2000s in this great way.
Yeah, when did it come out? That was 2000.
2001.
Is it 2001 maybe?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can I just
that was a different time.
Daniel Craig.
May I just very quickly just speed round this? I just want to list some titles.
No, Griffin,
order.
no.
I'm gonna do this
we
so
gotta talk
fast.
about the movie. Oh, God damn it. All right.
The Bone Collector. Gone in 60 seconds.
Wait, hold on. Bone Collector.
We can't do this because we're gonna have to stop. Griffin, no.
Warcraft Tomb Raider.
People can
Original
look at her
Sin.
filmography.
Life or Something Like It. Warcraft Tomb Raider.
Stop.
The Cradle of Life.
Griffin, stop. Griffin, I want to say something about Original Sin.
Okay.
Good Shepherd.
Written and directed by Michael Good Shepherd masterpiece. Michael Christopher, who wrote this movie and also plays Truxton Spangler in Rubicon.
And is also Angelica Houston's ex-husband on the NBC series Smash.
Yes, and she throws a drink in his face.
Should I watch Smash?
Iconically. Yes. I think the answer right now during the quarantine to that question is always yes. Like, should I watch? I'm like, yeah, what else are you doing?
Have I already made this joke on this podcast that a friend texted, should I watch The Good Dinosaur? And I was like, yeah, I mean, now.
That's one where I'm like, let's see. Like, if this is a 6-monther.
That movie is bad in ways that are entirely inoffensive. Why not watch it? We all apparently have all the time in the world to watch anything. Watch The Good Dinosaur. It won't make you angry. The only thing that could possibly anger you is I wasted an hour and a half on this. You're not going to have that complaint anymore.
A month from now, what is the next series of movies? Like, how further do you go down that path?
You watch Cars 2. That's what happens.
Oh, my God.
A month from now, we're all going to be watching Cars 2. By the time this episode comes out, everyone's watching Cars 2. Look,
that's
I don't
really
want to be...
dire.
I'm not trying to get canceled. I'm not trying to be controversial. But a month from now, everyone's going to be watching Cars 2.
I really don't want that.
That is that's the bleakest thing I've heard since this began, and I've heard some bleak shit. I'm not gonna joke around here.
That's so bleak.
Cam, 1 month from now, Flashback is going to be doing an episode on Cars 2.
Don't say that.
All right,
I'm predicting.
So I just want to say, to get back to the Witches of Eastwick, in his introduction scene, I love how his simple existence and the fact that everyone starts remembering his name creates like waves of horniness that spread through the area. Veronica Cartwright falls down the stairs.
I've heard of Pearl clutching, but Pearl exploding?
Right, the pearls go everywhere. Like, everything is just suddenly so viscerally sexual that literally, like, you know how in Crash, Sandra Bullock falls down the stairs because she's racist? Like, Veronica Cartwright falls down the stairs because there's too much horniness.
Right. Sandra Bullock has a supernatural level of racism in her body in Crash that affects the universe around her. It fucks with time and space.
It's so crazy that I have any respect for an act. I love Sandra Bullock in a lot of movies. I have respect for her as an actress. It's crazy considering I've seen Crash. Like, I think about that once in a while.
So this
I
is
think
my
about that
wildest.
scene all the time.
Oh, nonstop.
I fell down the stairs.
And to answer your question, Kim, dare I say it, a month from now we're going to be watching Cars 2. 2 months from now we're going to be watching that scene on a loop. That's the only thing that anyone's going to be watching.
Oh my god.
I could see like a good TikTok, developing around Sandra Bullock eating it on the stairs.
Here is my absolute. I'm surprised that hasn't become a meme structure yet, actually. That you post like
The
a bad
teens need to
take on
discover
Twitter,
Crash.
and then the next image is her falling down the stairs. We have to make that happen.
Yeah.
The bad take and the fall down the stairs. I'm going to throw out what I think is my wildest take on this movie.
Oh, I can't wait.
But I believe that you will all, within a few seconds of contemplation, agree with me. I think this is George Miller's most naturalistic film.
It does over Lorenzo's Oil. I feel like that's the competitor.
Yeah. Lorenzo's
Wow.
Oil, you're
I mean,
forgetting, is fucking insane. The entire film
I
looks
know.
like
It's
the
a pretty
opening
crazy movie.
of Raising Arizona. Yeah.
You're right, and they're right, and it has scenes of Nick Nolte falling down
Right.
the stairs while the camera zooms in on words in a medical document and things like that.
But
It
just because we're
invented a beautiful mind.
Yeah.
Like Ron Howard,
Yes,
we saw what you did.
but his camera movement's a lot less extreme in this movie. The
Yes,
lighting
yeah.
is less dramatic. He usually everything looks like a fucking Renaissance painting in a George Miller movie. And
I
even
love
the
production
scenes,
value.
Oh,
Don't
me
you
too.
love production value?
I love seeing that money
Yes, I do.
up on screen.
This movie
Oh
looks
my
like
God.
a paperback romance novel. Like
I
the
love
lighting,
it. Yes.
like
Yes.
the color
Yes.
of it. Yeah.
every house they're in, shares little log cabin, right? Everyone has an amazing environment.
I just think because he's a filmmaker of such endless imagination and also technical skill that he can sort of pull off bringing anything to the screen. For a movie that has such insane set pieces, there is a surprising amount of restraint when you compare it to the rest of his filmography in scenes like the fucking tennis match where Susan Sarandon plays her
Incredible
cello so hard it catches
Incredible
on fire. Shit that's literally out of a
The-
Bugs Bunny cartoon. In the tennis match, there's a shot where Jack Nicholson has one hand on his hip and the other hand is casually holding up the tennis racket as he hits 3 balls simultaneously. And it feels like a Bugs Bunny image. It feels like an Ain't I a Stinker sight gag.
It's a fucking hilarious movie somehow.
And
How do you
it's his
think?
most naturalistic film.
No,
That's what's wild about his movies.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's a great director, you guys. I don't know if you know. Well, I haven't seen Happy Feet, so I can't really say.
Skip straight to 2. You'll be able to pick up on everything. It's a really easy universe to understand.
I gather, yeah.
You know
Yeah,
about
no.
Heart Songs, right?
What?
Well, never mind. We'll cover that later.
Okay. Well, look, no, I think I get what you mean, and I agree with you. It is just still so weird to me that he directed this film because he is someone that I think of as actually, well, I mean, okay, it helps that you have how many Mad Max movies comprising your filmography, and then, right, you have 4, and then you have 2 Babe movies.
Yeah, and 2
You
Happy
have a lot. You
And
have a
2
lot
Happy
of
Feet.
2 Happy Feet, right? You have a
Yeah.
lot of repetition. So
Yeah.
yes, things like this would stand out. But I mean, the Mad Max films are not gingerbread cutout films.
No.
Right?
And each of them are strange in their own
radically
ways. Yeah.
different films. He
Yeah.
just reinvents
Yes.
everything with such ease.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Babe 2 should have
Right.
been nominated, and that's
Up
just fucking
100%.
Babe 2 is possibly his second best film. It's very high on the
Iconic.
list.
iconic.
Yeah.
It is iconic.
And Lorenzo's Oil is the high watermark for 90s Oscar bait drama. It's
Yeah.
that and Philadelphia for
There's
me
nothing
are
like
if all Oscar
Yeah.
baity drama was like this, people wouldn't
resent Oscar baity drama.
But if all sex comedies, not that they
Yeah.
really exist anymore, were this good?
You could say the same thing about Mad Max with action films, and
Yeah.
you could say the same thing with Babe and Happy Feet about children's films.
Oh, totally.
Like every
Yeah.
time he steps up to the plate and makes a movie, it sort of becomes like, well, if every film in this genre was this inventive
Yeah.
and this thoughtful, then we would be living in a perpetual golden age of cinema.
And obviously they won't be because he's an exceptional talent. But if they
Yeah.
even aspired to be, if
Sure.
I felt like more films, if I felt like more comedies wanted to be as good as this comedy, which it just works as a comedy. It is funny. It is sexy. It is star powered. The scenes are good. The writing's good. The concept's good. It's just like, why can't everything be at least this good?
It's also a weird comedy in that so much of the comedy is tone, is like
Yes.
subtlety of performance and individual moments and decisions.
It's all these face-offs. Like
Right.
like after he shows up, it's these one-on-one scenes, one after the other,
Yeah.
that are all sort of like faintly, more than faintly ridiculous, like sort of completely ridiculous, but also kind of for real.
Yeah.
I
I don't know. I love it too. And then we just kind of hard cut to they just all live there.
Yeah.
And Veronica Cartwright is just having like a horny aneurysm.
Well, can I say also, I think another thing about the comedy in this movie is that almost every scene, it feels like, is primarily structured for drama.
Yeah.
And the comedy comes
Sure.
from like sort of what's going on within it. But even when you get into the more hijinksy stuff, it never feels like it's building around comedic rhythms. And even though there's a lot of funny dialogue in this movie, it doesn't have many jokes.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Right.
not a movie with punchlines. It's not a movie with payoffs that are comedic. The payoffs are more based in tension or trauma. But there's just a simmering comedy to everything that's happening.
What you're saying is really making me think back to the Bill Murray version because I can see where the punchlines would be. Right?
You can see an Ivan Reitman, Bill Murray version of this movie that might be very funny.
Ivan Reitman, that's shade.
But it would be just a very
I
conventional
get it,
studio comedy version of this premise.
Yeah.
And you would have a scene like a cello catching on fire.
Yeah.
And for, I don't know how, I mean, obviously it's hysterical when that happens in this movie, but also you're like, yeah, that's hot. Like, you know, it somehow threads that needle.
But it's like an overt sexual symbol that works.
Right.
Which
I
is
say this,
a hard thing to do.
I say this with no disrespect to the movie I'm about to reference because this is a movie that I think is great in its own right. But the Bill Murray version of this movie would at best be 9 to 5. It would be 9 to 5 with magic.
Right.
You know, it would be like, what are the comedic hijinks of them torturing a guy who is so unpleasant that the audience wants to see him get it?
Yeah.
And what this movie is, but you kind of want this guy too.
Because he's hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's hot. That's the thing. That's the
so
thing
let's
that
talk
works.
about what's scary about sexuality and our own desires and impulses.
Don't you love this, like, I don't know. I feel like this double feature, Veronica Cartwright, The Birds, and this, and just weird erotic movies. It's like, can we make that her thing? Not that she's really a part of the erotic stuff in The Birds, but...
An Alien?
Oh, yeah, she's got that.
That's
it's like
a weird erotic movie.
Wound up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, just waiting for something in the movie to be the catalyst to make her just burst.
She has one of the
in
best
Alien, she's the
panic
one who's
faces.
right. Yeah, she's great at hysteria. Like, she's the one who reacts the most vehemently to the chest bursting scene. And it was partly because the blood got all over her and she, as an actress, did not know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's also, she's just great at
her
dialing
face is
it
great
up.
for that. Yeah.
Yes.
I also think that her scenes, especially the ones just like at home with Jenkins, are just like they're like virtuosic in terms of just like they're like monologues. Like they're just like pure unbottled mania where she is just like spinning around wheels and Jenkins is just kind of sitting there.
But but like and what we're getting at, I think, is like George Miller. I mean, this is a hard kind of scene to do because this is like a big personality. It's like you get the joke, you get the difference between the two archetypes. You get what her hysteria is doing. You get what his yes dearness is doing. You get how it fits in the scheme of the movie and why we need to dwell in her hysteria as a thing, because it's witches. It's Salem. We get it, but it could just as easily not be interesting because you get it. Like, to still have the cherry vomiting goes on so long. It is so violent.
It's so fucking insane.
Excruciating. Yeah. It's just like George Miller, these two modes of just perfectly pitched, smart comedy, but also when he goes there, he the voodoo doll shit, he just really,
he doesn't fuck around.
Then he does like the George Miller thing where it's like, all right, now let's do the weird shit. And he does it perfectly.
Can I throw an amazing fact?
Always.
They built a life-size animatronic Veronica Cartwright so that after the shot we see, where there's clearly like a tube running through her sleeve and the cherry pits are coming out of that.
But her acting is very well done. It's very seamless, yes.
Yes, very well done. They built a full-size animatronic that they could load up with cherries and cherry pits like it was a fucking tennis ball machine and just shoot it incessantly straight out of her mouth. And they shot that. It worked. And it was so fucking disturbing that audiences were revulsed by it and they cut all the footage out. They were like, insane. It was too effective that it upset people.
I need to see this footage.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Hell yeah.
I need to see this footage right fucking now.
The fact that like her barfing the cherries is so gross that Richard Jenkins is just like, I have to kill her right now.
This is self-defense against grossness.
Yeah, exactly. This is just too insane. I just have to take a poker to her head immediately.
Right. Which he's like terrible to do, and you never lose sight of the fact that he killed his wife, and it's terrible. But this movie is so weird because it's never that easy. She's terrible.
Yeah, look, officer, what can I say? It was yucky. And they went, fair enough, case closed.
And you know what? She hates women. So, she hates sexuality.
Right.
Well, Richard Jenkins is not doing his job.
It's not true. Very weird to see Richard Jenkins with a little bit of hair on top?
Just a little, like 30% more.
Just a little patch.
I love him.
I love him too.
He's right, but he's the local newspaper man, and he's not really.
Oh God!
But
side note, local news and movies. God, guys,
I know, but also I love that it's local news, right? Yeah. But then also the news is so local that the front page news is like 3 women live at this guy's house. Like, get a load of this. Cher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Susan Sarandon.
Extra, fucking going on up in that there house.
Anyway, so they all live in the house for a while. I love that the tennis scene, I guess, is the closest to them out loud saying, like, I guess we have magic powers. But they never actually say it. I love that there's no expositional moment where they're we are the Witches of Eastwick.
They actively deny it. I mean, they all realize we all were wishing for rain at the same time. Isn't that weird? And they're like, it can't be. Then they start pitching this guy. They form a writer's room. They do like a week or two pitching on.
They debate his dick size, where one of them's like too big, one of them's like really small, so he ends up in the middle.
Very important thing that happens there. Women talking about dick size in the movie. I'm very proud.
Yeah, and that they explicitly talk about the curvature of his dick. I mean, that's like not something you see in a studio comedy. That is not like a fucking National Lampoon movie. And that is not like a joke about it being gross. I
appreciate that I'm Cher, and that Cher really takes lead of that conversation.
Likes the curve.
Yeah,
likes that curve.
And even when
she doesn't want to flatten the curve.
When they make
the
voodoo doll. When they make the voodoo doll, it initially has like a sort of modest penis, and then they kind of like, you cut to it and it has a huge penis.
Needs a little one.
I love it too.
You can't lie. He's problematic, but let's not lie, right?
Right. Let's give him his respect where it's due.
But that's the great thing is once he comes to life, once all 3 of them fall for him, once he fulfills so many of the things that they pitch, they're still like, we're not witches. We're lucky. This guy happens to like all three of us at the same time.
Well, to be
And-
fair,
and-
I mean, right? I mean, real life. Who would think that makes you a witch? It makes you a woman. No, men being bad. So I get it. I get why they're slow to connect the dots to some higher power. Yeah,
Right. Yes. Right. And
feminism.
even once they're with him, they're mostly chilling. And then I guess why is it that I guess it's because Veronica Cartwright dies. That's where they tap out of the whole situation and start ignoring him. And that's when he freaks out and starts like tormenting them.
There are just too many undeniable elements at that point. Yeah.
One of the great men are needy movies
Mm-hmm.
Right.
of all time.
He immediately flips out. He's immediately like, what do you mean? You're not going to hang out with me all the time?
Yeah.
A part I really liked was that they shoot the VHS footage and
Yeah.
then use that later as like a hit, like showing his obsession.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
His big wall of TVs. Wall of TVs was a very cool prop in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got 16 TVs in a grid.
God, I love that though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
don't you love that?
Blank check. Blank check.
Blank
has
check.
one.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it because I didn't want to say it, but
No, but we got to acknowledge it.
It's also-
you got to acknowledge it. Yeah.
I like that the film also works in this sort of slut shaming of all the other women in the town around them. That it's not just Veronica Cartwright standing in
Right.
for it, but you have that scene where Sarandon goes to the market and all the women in line keep on making comments about her. So that at the moment that they make the connection to Cartwright's death, they're like, look, already this thing's fucking dinging our reputation. Everyone knows about it. It's front page news. And now this woman puked up cherries?
Right.
I hate small towns in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Having come from a suburb, yeah, the feeling of fucking everybody knows your business. You can't even fuck a dude, right?
And
Without-
especially
I can totally-
because Jersey is
yeah.
so crowded.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's all up in each
everyone's
other's
always
business.
fucking
Yeah.
talking about each
I
other.
can totally relate because I grew up in Greenwich Village, which is just like a little small.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
It's a,
Here-
small, it's a
here's the
village. It's
thing.
just a little village.
Well, David also grew up in the city, so
Right. Yeah.
You
So
can't
the
really
joke
relate
applies
to
to
New
York
both of us.
City.
David doesn't need
Right.
to make a different joke. He lived in New York City his entire life.
No, until I was 9. Then I moved to London. But
what?
one thing I want to say, as a New Yorker, one thing I want to say that I truly appreciate is that when they decide, they get back together and they're like, okay, let's take him down. Let's make a candle version of him that we torment. Here's how they distract him. They're like, go out and get some bagels and lox. And he respects the move. He's like, yeah, that sounds good right now.
Sounds like a perfect
bagels, lox,
Sunday.
and ice cream. So he trots on down the road to go get bagels and lox. And that whole interaction with the guy where the guy doesn't have ice cream and he's like, well, just give me the bagels and the fish. I love that that's in this movie.
It's such a long. It's like
It's a long scene as they are about to like torment him, and he's going to do a whole fucking heebie-jeebie dance in the ice cream store and then turn into a colossal demon. But let's make sure there's a full interaction of him getting Grovlocks at like the Rhode Island county store.
Well, because you need to know that he has good taste, that he went for the Grov.
Exactly.
Just very important food movie, I have to say.
Ooh.
Yes. Cherries.
Just the food elements. I mean, the cherries, it's not like a positive food representation thing, which is what I'm going for. But I mean, God, Griffin, I can't imagine like not having grown up with the cherry scene, and the snake scene, which are two of the most vivid.
That's a lot of snakes.
You want to hear a
Two of
killer
the most
burn?
vivid things of my childhood.
A killer burn, according to the IMDb trivia page, which I'm consulting a lot in this episode because there's just a lot of good stuff for this one. When they were shooting the scene with the snakes and Cher was preparing to get into bed, she said, which one of these is Jon Peters?
Hey.
And to that, I want to offer Cher a very belated 5 comedy points.
I
love that.
I appreciate that while she's getting ready to get in a bed full of snakes, she's like, I have a zinger I could pop off
Let me
right now.
just throw out a quick yuck.
Wait, and this was the same year as Moonstruck?
Yeah, that's nuts.
Same year as Moonstruck. Iconic. Like truly iconic.
Genuinely great performances.
I mean, she's so wonderful in this, and then Moonstruck is a whole other thing, and she's obviously incredible in
I just want to circle back to, they offer her the remaining role in this film. She goes, nah, I'd rather have that part. They said that part's already taken, and she went, no, I think I'm going to play that part. And they just swapped parts.
Yeah.
They didn't even tell Sarandon.
And she beat, the people she beat for the Oscar that year, she beat Glenn Close for Fatal Attraction and Holly Hunter for Broadcast News. Two of the most iconic performances of the 80s. And you can't really argue with it. Like, it's not a thing where you're like, well, that's unfair.
There's
Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction is one of the most definitive, like, movie star actress performances of that decade.
I was going to argue there's a case to be made that those are the top 3 most iconic and enduring performances from leading actresses in the 80s.
Right.
Let's do it.
They're in the 5.
Broadcast News, Fatal Attraction, Moonstruck. Like, there's a valid argument to be made that in studio filmmaking in the 80s, no 3 leading actress performances have endured more and had a greater impact. And they were in the same goddamn year.
This is why I want to see the tallies of the votes. How close?
Yeah, break that one down. Right.
The answer is...
Yeah, well,
Glenn.
What if there was a wife?
David, that's too big of a question to introduce this late into the episode. We don't have time to answer.
We don't
have.
All right.
What if there was a walnut?
Well, so they destroy Jack Nicholson by smashing up the
we're
doll.
going through the plot.
I know.
I'm just wrapping it up.
It's kind of cute that we're even bothering to go through the plot.
I just like that he does turn into a giant monster for 1 second just because George Miller's like, what? He's not going to not. I mean, come on.
Those effects are so goddamn impressive, though. Both like the animatronic, whatever that model is that they made, looks so amazing, moves so well.
Yeah.
They have 2 different models. There's the little baby preemie one and the giant monster one. But they're also...
the baby.
They are
baby is
composited
crazy.
So well. And like, I love both of these movies, but... You compare this to like the big creature, the big demon at the end of Evil Dead 2, which is the same year as this. You compare this to the sandworms in Beetlejuice the following year, and neither of those look like they're integrated into the same space. And when that fucking thing appears out their window, I don't understand how they fucking made this.
Well, it's Jack Nicholson.
Oh, he was just on one that day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird how it looks like him.
Yeah.
It's such a...
Yeah, those aren't visual effects.
They're really unnerving looking. Yeah.
So
George was like...
Yeah.
Jack, you got to be a demon today. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like,
What was the other one you said? It was Evil Dead 2 and what was the other comparison? The sandworms and Beetlejuice were after this?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's what the year
and I think
after.
Both of those movies are embracing a sort of artificiality, and they're more sort of expressionistic in what they're doing. But in this, it's just like, even just from a compositing level, it really looks like they're occupying the same space. And so often, movies like this, where there's a giant creature in the 80s, you constantly have that like green screen halo around them, where they look collaged onto the image. And in this, I was like, is there just a 30-foot robot outside the set?
Well, it's George Miller,
It's George Miller. It might have been. It might have just been fucking huge for one shot.
And then, of course, he turns into a baby and then goes like, ding, which is... But then I just like to imagine like people at their like local multiplex seeing this movie that we cut to 18 months later. They all have devil babies with their own hair colors. And Jack Nicholson's on the big TV being like, give daddy a kiss. And they turn it off and it's like, roll credits. Get out of here. We got to clean the theater. Like, are people just leaving being like, that was pretty good.
Huge hit. Like, huge fucking hit. It must have.
Huge hit.
Like, how are they just not walking out of there being like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I agree.
Here's the thing. I mean, it's a sad question.
Uh-huh.
But remember sex at the movies?
Having it or watching it?
Like, no, in Hollywood having
movie.
Sex in its movies?
Sure.
Yeah, with a sexual energy. with a real
only
sexual
slightly.
I got really close to answering at the theater.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. You have no trouble remembering that. Dan,
Fred
sure.
Willard over here.
I'm sitting in my bedroom. I'm not allowed to go to theaters, so even that's like evaporated.
Well, damn. I know. This is another crazy thing because none of us have read the novel fully, and 3 of us have not read the novel at all.
I read 5 pages. I just want to be
No,
clear.
impressive. I mean, you have a 5-page lead on the rest of us. You're way ahead of the pack. But according to Wikipedia, it says at the end of the film, or towards the end of the book, I'm just going to quote here, Daryl unexpectedly marries a young innocent girl named Jenny, and the jealous 3 witches magically cause her to die of cancer. None of the 3 witches get pregnant at the end, and Daryl flees town with Jenny's younger brother, Chris, apparently his lover. So, like, the ending of this film is totally invented. The pregnancies are invented. The sort of lingering, like, look, he's still at large. He's trying to get through to his kids. He's sort of seeded the earth with his progeny. Like, all of that is just fucking Hollywood.
Ben, what you're hearing is the people clapping for the healthcare workers at 7:00.
Oh.
This will hopefully be a nice moment for people listening to this podcast that we're capturing the sound of me living too close to hospitals.
Yeah, because Griff lives, in sort of a hospital-y area.
I can admit now I try not to list like too much about where I live, just for personal privacy. I do live in a wing of Mount Sinai, which has been a little, I have to be a little scary recently.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Let's play the box office game.
Yeah.
So this movie came out
too.
Pretty good.
I think the reviews were good.
Ebert gave it 3 out of 4.
He gave Crash more stars than he gave Witches of Eastwick.
He said everyone had the same takeaway, which is like, this is superlative Hollywood filmmaking. It's like a perfect star vehicle. It's funny. It's sexy. Everyone says the last 20 minutes it just devolved into too much special effects, which is a crazy thing to think about now.
Right.
Where the last 40 minutes of every movie now is 18 characters fighting a hole in the sky.
Whereas like the big special effect is actually Jack Nicholson. Like, I mean, especially, when he's like flinging himself around.
And like pretty limited makeup.
And I want to read this from Ebert. There's a scene where Nicholson dresses in satin pajamas and sprawls full length on a bed, twisting and stretching sinuously in full enjoyment of his sensuality. It's one of the funniest moments of physical humor he has ever committed. Like, Ebert was all in on Nicholson in this movie.
This is the other great line in Ebert's review. A lot of the time, this movie plays like a plausible story about implausible people.
Yeah.
That's a great take, but there's that weird plausibility. I mean, and it's why I think in a certain way this movie is a little more toned down than most of Miller's films, because he understands he's dealing with a very, very wild starting point in terms of the material, what the audience is going to have to buy into. That he's a smart enough filmmaker to go like, I got to play against some of my overcranked tendencies as a filmmaker because we're already at a 10.
Do we know what Updike thought of the movie?
No idea. Good question. Actually, I have no idea.
It's weird that it like never occurred to me until now to wonder.
It is also fucking weird that this movie inspires 3 different TV adaptations. The first 2 are pilots that never went. The third one ran for a season. Also turns into a musical that played in multiple different major markets. And then in 2008, John Updike's final novel before dying is a very belated sequel to this, which I have never heard anyone talk about, called The Widows of Eastwick.
No, I'd never heard of it until you mentioned it today.
Wild.
Miller should do it. Get Michelle, Susan, and Cher. Michelle, Susan, and Cher are all available. Get them in. Miller loves to do a sequel. Why not?
Yeah, I'm in. All
right, so
I'm in, but where can we go from here?
I don't know. You're right.
How do we top this? How do we top
He is the king of topping things, though. Like, that is his vibe.
I love that. Very suggestive. My kind of joke. Yeah. I agree. And he can top anything he wants.
I'm looking
June
here
12th.
at the Wikipedia to try to summarize what the plot of the Widows of Eastwick is.
No,
and
you
I
can't.
can't
Don't
do
bother
it.
because it's so involved.
I can't.
I try.
Yes, it's
I do.
nonsense.
It's nonsense.
Yeah.
And it involves that Jenny character a lot, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm only going to read the final line of the Wikipedia entry, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
The novel ends with the two women happily making plans to meet up for another vacation.
Oh, that
sounds like a great ending.
Yeah, great ending.
June 12th, 1987. This film opens to $9 million, but it's number 2.
Middle of the summer.
Griffin.
Once again, one of
It was
the
a summer
10 highest
summer
grossing
movie.
films of its year.
So, did the pop culture witch thing, like I'm like specifically the strain that includes the craft, practical magic, etc. Is that
Right.
because of this?
Maybe.
What's before this?
Maybe a little bit.
I think The Witches is more directly because of this, because The Witches is 1990 and is
Right.
in a sort of similar vibe to this.
Yeah. Well, but the witches doesn't have like. I guess I mean like the women's ensemble witch movie,
Yeah,
like where the witches aren't.
The Coven
because
movie.
the witches is
You're
like,
talking about a Coven movie.
a good Coven movie.
yes, a good
I feel
Coven
like, yeah,
movie, but
I-
with like Nicole Kidman like characters.
Yeah, I can
I
only
feel like
think
this
of one
is-
Coven movie with Nicole Kidman in it, but
Yeah. I mean, but that's what I mean, right? She belongs in a Coven movie
yes.
alongside
like,
Susan
it-
Sarandon and
Mhm.
Michelle Pfeiffer and all them.
Hocus Pocus,
Oh, yeah.
craft, practical magic. Those are sort of their own 90s little
Yeah.
connection. But I feel like,
Does Spice
practical
World
magic
count as a
obviously
Coven
owns so
movie?
much.
Yeah, practical magic.
Yeah, sure. Griffin, what was number 1 at the box office, June 12th, 1987?
RoboCop comes out in August, right?
It's not RoboCop, but it's like that. It is a sort of sci-fi action franchise starter.
It's a franchise starter. They're kicking it off.
Yeah. They're kicking it off. It opens to $12 million. It's got a big star.
Is it the Terminator?
No, 87.
Terminator's 86,
But, you know-
right? Yeah.
Right actor.
Right actor. It's an Arnold franchise starter.
Yeah.
Why am I not thinking of this? Oh, it's Predator. It's
'Cause
Predator. It's the movie
It's
Predator.
Predator.
It's the movie Predator.
Which he is not in any other Predator movies, but he was in the start. But Predator grossed less than the Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah,
Like
pretty well.
total.
Yeah.
Witches of Eastwick had a
Sounds-
longer tail.
Sounds about right.
Predator is such a weird franchise because you go from Predator to Predator 2, then big gap, and it's like this is what Predator 3 should have been, Predators. Then another gap, then this is what Predator 3 should have been, The Predator. And then in between, you have Alien versus Predator, Alien versus Predator Requiem, and Hansen versus Predator. I took that walk just for that one fucking joke. I'm sorry.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry.
All right. Number 2 is Eastwick. Number 3 is one of the big movies of the year, an action comedy sequel.
It's not Lethal Weapon 2.
No,
Huh.
It's not Beverly Hills Cop 2, or it is?
it is. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Great movie. Tony
Very
Scott.
good movie.
Never seen it. Only seen the first one.
You got
It
to see the
rules.
second one.
Oh, I'm a breast man.
Well, but Tony's pretty good. Tony, come on. Come on. You can, I don't know. I can't do a pun with his name. All
Maybe
right.
I'm a bit of a
Number
Scotsman
4.
too.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Number 4 is a movie we talked about on this episode. Big auteur director, sort of trashy fun movie at the time. Now feels like an austere frickin' prestige drama.
Untouchables.
Yeah. Now, number 5 is the one that I have never heard of. So I'm going to have to
Never.
look it up.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. John Schlesinger. Jesus.
JD Amato just tried to FaceTime both of us while we're recording. If you're hearing a notification. And for the listener at home, David just texted JD the word no.
Hell yeah.
Something that definitely will not make JD stress out. Okay, so it's a John Schlesinger film that you had not heard of.
Yes. Never heard of it. I mean, he must have been. No, he had more movies. Yeah.
Who's in
Martin
it?
Sheen is the star. Martin Sheen, Robert
Sheen?
Loggia.
What? There's no way I've heard
Jimmy
of this song
Smits
before,
is in this
right?
movie.
It's
also a witchy movie. It's like a New York City cop murder movie, but there's witchiness.
What? What?
We're never gonna get. I mean, unless you want to do like
what
we
the fuck is he talking? He's
charade
making this up.
style. You try to get
I
us
am
to
not
guess the
making it
title
up.
word by
He's
word.
lying.
It's written by Mark Frost, who of course would then go on to co-create Twin
You're
Peaks.
fucking lying. What are you talking
This
about? What is
never
this?
happened.
And I believe it is new this week, so it was not a big hit.
David, this is a Pro Smiths No Bits podcast, and right now you are betraying that rule because you're doing a bit about
Okay.
Smiths. This movie doesn't exist.
The movie is called The Believers.
No, it's not.
I'm checking
okay.
on this.
I
I'm
refuse to
checking.
believe it.
It's a neo-noir horror film directed by John Schlesinger and based on the novel The Religion by Nicholas Condé.
Well, I got
based on the novel The Religion by Nicholas Condé. Oh.
It's Martin Sheen.
I've got to see this.
It's like a satanic cop movie with like voodoo curses and shit.
Jeez.
Cool.
Are you
Sounds
kidding
kinda
me?
good.
I'm renting it right now.
Apparently,
It got bad reviews, but I don't know. Sounds kind of good.
The movie
Well, you
was
can't trust critics.
the book. Oh,
Definitely not.
I've never agreed with that more.
Damn, 1.5 from Ebert.
The
He called it
book was
tasteless,
about
which I like.
Judeo-Christian Satan, and for the movie, they changed it to an Afro-Caribbean Satan, which sounds really, really thoughtful.
Some other movies. You have Harry and the Hendersons. You have Ernest Goes to Camp. That was in
Nice.
theaters.
A movie that we'll never talk about on this podcast.
Right. You have Platoon, which is still in theaters
From
6
the
months
previous
after.
year?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
And yes, they have The Secret of My Success.
Yeah.
Vietnam, man. That's it. We're done. We're done talking about The Witches of Eastwick, a horny masterpiece.
Witches
So
of
we got to
Eastwick.
wrap it up, Griff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts, Cam?
Well, I'm really excited for the Babe 2 episode, I have to say. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm going to say this. Because I want to warn people in advance. We've got
Yeah.
a great guest on the episode. I think people will be happy that they are on the podcast finally. Long overdue. Friend of the show. IRL friend of ours. They turned out to not be a Pig in the City fan. So the episode is, I wouldn't say it's contentious,
A little contentious.
So they hadn't seen it before.
which I did not know because they so immediately asked if they could cover the film, and then they said they started watching it and realized they were wrong. They had not seen it.
So what did they think they'd seen?
I guess they just watched
Babe?
the first Babe 2 times.
But that's a good question because there is no movie like Babe Big in the City in
There's
the
no
history
other
of the
movie
film arts.
That
They-
could have been.
Huh, let me think about that. Is
They
there
watched
another
Babe.
movie?
They watched Babe and then they had a fever dream, and that's what they're remembering.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right.
God, Babe 2 is such a good stoner movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know
stoner classic.
Do you know
From
who
a guy
loves
who made
Babe
a
2?
lot of them.
Yes. Tom Waits, which makes
Ah.
so much goddamn sense because Babe Pig in the City is the closest anyone has come to making a Tom Waits song visually.
Yeah.
Do you think that David Lynch has seen it?
Unquestionably.
I sure hope he has.
David Lynch
I
has
hope
probably
he has
jerked
too.
off to Babe Pig in the City.
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
For the listener at home, Cam is speechless, but also the attic in which Ben is recording, the sun has set. There is just but one light in a corner, not above him, but underneath
And there
him.
wasn't initially. Initially, it was just dark. Ben turned the
I
light
know.
on.
It now looks like he is in Night of the Hunter. It is like
Yeah. Or that
Cabinet
he's
of Dr.
fucking Jane
Caligari.
Eyre, he's the goddamn lady in the attic.
he's got the blanket over him. It's some Mrs. Haversham shit. I'm gonna take a photo of this. I gotta find a way to screen grab this.
Well, there's no lights up here apparently, so this is the best I could do.
So whose attic is it? Should we send
I
help?
fled New
What?
York, and I'm in New Hampshire, and they are like weird up here and like don't believe in heat.
It's cold up there. I don't know if they know that.
It's crazy. But
I screenshotted it,
that.
Griffin. I'll send it to you. That's quite all right. Cam, thank you for joining us. It's so nice to talk to you and see your face in this quarantine.
I know.
time.
It's weird, right? How
It's so weird.
like, yeah. But you know what? It's fine because we have Witches of Eastwick and other shit to rewatch.
It's what's keeping me going.
Can I just say, Cam, in the last year and change since you have been on the podcast,
yes.
our Batman episode, which I guess was a little over a year ago now, you have written several pieces that made me angry
I love it.
with how good they were, and that where my anger dissipated quickly, but where it felt like you found a way to perfectly sort of capture something in the air that seemed impossible to verbalize. Your piece on Retired Bit and how it relates to the Scorsese movies that it's
talking about
homaging. No, I'm not. I'm talking about Retired Bit.
All right.
But
We
that one-
retired the
that
bit.
one in
But
particular.
thank you for translating. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just saying to our listeners at home, go to Vanity Fair, click that hyperlink, K. Austin Collins, and look at everything you've written in the last year because it's all been goddamn gold.
Well, thank you. I'm just hoping that in quarantine, when I can't go outside and think, I can still write. It's been hard to write.
It's been really, it's been
like,
very hard to concentrate.
I can't. Yeah. It's been hard, but it's weird. This was like one of the movies. I have to say, movies right now have not been good distraction for me. They haven't been distracting me, but for watching parts of this was actually pretty diverting. It might be because I've seen it a million times, but I think George Miller is just a perfect, just your ideal mainstream director, smart, alert, and diverse, and repeats himself, I guess in the sense of making sequels, but
it never feels like he does.
It just never. Yeah, he just really a gem.
This is this take that we've been developing over this miniseries that George Miller is kind of unquestionably the king of sequels.
Wait, what won Cannes when he was the jury president?
Oh,
Because
that's a good
that
question.
would be something that I'd hold against someone, actually.
David, can you pull that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up.
But I think to your point about George Miller movies being...
he picked, they picked I, Daniel Blake. That's one of the Ken Loach years.
Weird.
Not my favorite Ken Loach.
No, although not a bad movie.
I still love George Miller.
Yeah.
No,
Yes,
Kes is
sure,
great.
sure.
So you chose a movie by the guy who did Kes. When that shaped the bar.
Right. I also think, Griffin, you've said this, but I think it's true. It's like they often gravitate towards movies they could never make. Like Tim Burton picking Uncle Boone Me, or Steven Spielberg picking
Blue is the Warmest Color.
Blue is the Warmest Color.
Right.
Yeah.
Where they're like,
sure.
damn, damn.
And I even think-
so George Miller picking an incredibly austere work of social realism
Right.
with no
Even though
embellishment.
The City is the more politically convincing film in my
Right.
opinion.
But
I would agree with that.
but we're removing the word austere. That's the differentiating factor. No, and I think
But,
Lucretia
George Miller
Mattel
being
picking Retired Bit. It's all. I think it's usually a filmmaker going, that's not in my vocabulary. I wouldn't even know how to start with that thing.
That last one though, man.
You have to admit, it's a pretty good bit that she gave that the golden line.
It's a better troll than appeared in the movie.
Yes,
absolutely. That was a better troll.
It is more provocative, genuinely, than the film.
She went off. She was
she went off.
Fuck Marriage Story.
Yeah.
Fuck Ad Astra.
Yeah.
Irishman's not even fucking here.
Yeah.
So fuck him.
It's pretty wild.
No, I love it. You know what? Zama, go see it. Go rent it.
Zama rules.
But I don't know. I why not end here? Because this is a thought that just sort of came to me. We recorded most of these episodes before the world went into lockdown. This is one of only 3 that we're doing post-lockdown over Zoom. But our listeners will probably be watching these movies along with the episode releases while they're stuck at home. And this is not anything we could have anticipated or predicted, but even though a lot of these films are very apocalyptic and nightmarish, the Mad Max franchise in particular, and Lorenzo's Oil is a movie about like the fascinating terror of not understanding diseases and bodies and medicine and science and all that sort of stuff. These films are weirdly easy to watch in a time where it is hard to stay focused on anything. And I think it is because George Miller has never made a film that is a passive watch. His films are so sort of operatic, or using every single tool of filmmaking in one way or another, that you have to fully submit yourself to it. If you put it on, you're going to be fully engaged by it, whether or not you love it. And I'd say
incredible.
It's hard not to love. Yeah. Well, Cam, thank
Agreed.
you for being on the show. People should listen to Flashback.
Yeah, Flashback on Slate Plus.
You and the great Dan Stevens, past and future guest.
Yes.
And thank you for being here, Cam. And thank you all for listening. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks to Anne Farraguda for co-producing this show, Lane Montgomery for our theme song, Joe Bone, Pat Rounds for artwork. Go to blankzariat.com for some real nerdy shit. Go to patreon.com/blankcheck for Blank Check special features, where we will still be on the Toy Story commentaries, where I am sure I behave in a very, very serious and sophisticated manner. And as always, Life or Something Like It, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life, Beyond Borders, Taking Lives, Shark Tale, Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, Alexander, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, The Good Shepherd, A Mighty Heart. I've been waiting all episode to finish off this list. Beowulf, Kung Fu Panda, Wanted, Changeling, Salt, The Tourist, Kung Fu Panda 2. She doesn't do another movie until fucking Maleficent, By the Sea, Kung Fu Panda 3, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil.